Hey guys, Zane here with another one-take review, and today I want to talk about the new 070 Shake album, You Can't Kill Me. You Can't Kill Me is the latest and sophomore album from rapper slash soul singer slash pop musician 070 Shake, as well as member of the 070 musical collective as well. And her debut album, Modus Vivendi, in 2020 was a pretty big deal overall. It had a lot of critical hype around it, and it did very, very well, actually, on chart positions and overall sales, and all things considered, it seemed like she was a pretty rising star in the realm of general music, but then there was kind of radio silence after that for some time, and now, 2 years later, we finally get the follow-up to the album, and it's quite excellent. As you might expect from somebody like 070 Shake, by that I mean a sort of very modernized R&B style of performer, a lot of You Can't Kill Me is hyper-futuristic in nature. Now first, I want to just say, I know it's not a rare tone to be taken up in modern R&B music. In fact, you could argue that there is an overwhelming amount of hyper-futurism in soul music today. I mean, really, there are hundreds, dozens, hundreds of albums that come out every year that take up that sort of style or that sort of tone and combine it with older influences within the realm of R&B. It's in that way that 070 Shake really isn't all that unique in terms of her actual presence and in terms of her actual sort of conceptual being, I suppose you could say, but the execution of this futuristic style is still done very well nonetheless. You Can't Kill Me has a very cold and slightly unwelcoming at times atmosphere, but nonetheless remains very elegant and pretty in actual structure, and generally is very gripping as a listening experience overall, even in its weakest and most forgettable moments. Again, 070 Shake isn't really blowing anyone away with this sort of record. It's not like this hasn't been done before, but it is done extremely well. Much of the record feels very surreal in tone, which is something that gets more heavily developed as it progresses. The title of the track Blue Velvet, a major highlight on You Can't Kill Me, is actually quite fitting in my eyes, as that song, as well as perhaps the last 3/4 of the album, take up the same disturbed and slightly surreal tones, as well as sort of hypersexual presentation yet entrancing vibe that the David Lynch movie of the same name also utilizes. Once again, mild abstractism in R&B, not necessarily the most unique thing you'll ever hear, not even this year. I mean, there are already a number of albums slightly similar to You Can't Kill Me that have come out within the past few months alone, but at the same time, 070 Shake really does kind of have her own sort of take on things, as she makes things feel slightly heartbroken and maybe even a little bit yearning at times, which ultimately morphs what otherwise could have been an uncomfortable sound into something that feels strangely comfortable in its own odd sort of way. Interestingly, You Can't Kill Me is an album that actually gets better as it goes along, as if I'm being totally honest, the beginning track or two of this record are fairly average and actually quite underwhelming in the grand scheme of things, and especially considering the potential that this opening had. However, after things begin to sort of get going a little bit more, I suppose you could say, 070 Shake begins to continue to take up this sort of embracing of a dark and mysterious, yet again hypnotizing and almost beautiful persona that begins to truly blossom on the last half of You Can't Kill Me, and ultimately ensures the record is actually significantly above average rather than below. At that, You Can't Kill Me is also one of those records that you may need to listen to multiple times to fully get into. It's definitely a grower of an album in my eyes. I'm not saying that I didn't like this record upon first listen. Obviously I did, otherwise I wouldn't have been reasonably positive about it in the first place and want to revisit it, but at the same time, I definitely enjoyed this one more as I re-listened to it, and also cherry-picked certain tracks off of the album after first listen to appreciate on their own, as You Can't Kill Me does have a very continuous sound, which, while respectable, can ultimately result in a first listen that becomes a bit blurry at times. However, as I re-listen over and over to You Can't Kill Me, I can't help but feel that 070 Shake delivers some incredibly distinctive work here that's actually significantly better than her debut, as well as her previous EP that came before her first full-length studio album, and I truly think this might be some of her best work yet, and some of her most directly hypnotizing as well. It's just the simple fact that to a lot of people that will not at all be apparent to them upon first listen or maybe even 10th listen. You Can't Kill Me isn't an album that's made for everybody, it's made for 070 Shake herself, and I personally think that's the most effective way to go about making an album like this, and it really shows in the final product. So overall, You Can't Kill Me is a fantastic listening experience overall, and while the first few tracks definitely didn't have me with the highest of hopes, I guess you could say, I still do think that this was a very pleasing album overall that actually exceeded my expectations to some extent, as 070 Shake really packs a lot of personal feelings and emotion into the record, which is why I'm going to give You Can't Kill Me 4 stars out of 5. The latter half of the record definitely is where the highlights land, but the entire album as a full experience and as a full project is undeniably effective in its futurism, surrealism, and general emotive vibe to it. So again, 4 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.